And welcome to Global Business here on CGTN. I'm Michael Wong in Beijing. The headlines we're tracking for you at this hour. China sees record cross-border passenger trips in the first half of this year, with foreign arrivals jumping over 20% thanks to visa-free policies. China issues an action plan to ensure that the country reaches its goal of peaking carbon emissions by the year 2030. And we'll take a closer look at the volatility of oil prices as geopolitical tensions flare up once more in the Middle East. While Chinese mainland equities closed lower on this Friday, the Shanghai Composite Index fell some 1% on the day, while the Shenzhen component declined 2.3%. We'll have more on the mainland markets later in the show. Now a closer look at how regional markets performed and how Wall Street closed out overnight. And we begin with China-Namibia relations, where Chinese Premier Li Qiang says China is willing to work with Namibia to carry forward their traditional friendship, firmly support each other's core interests and major concerns, and promote mutually beneficial cooperation. Now, Premier Li made the remarks during his meeting with Namibian President Ntumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, who is on a state visit to China. My colleague Vivian Nunes spoke with Namibia's Minister of International Relations and Trade. She said China's zero-tariff policy toward Africa is expected to boost the continent's industrialization and bring benefits to multiple sectors.
I think I've already answered that by saying that the benefits of the gesture from China is going to generate industrialization. We are going to begin to add more value to what we are exporting to China. I think a lot of business people are going to be coming to China and see what are the needs. So tourism will also benefit and vice versa. In terms of transportation will benefit, services will benefit, people to people will benefit. So because we see trade as a peace building measure also. We don't just want to trade. We also want to have a better understanding among people. So the whole collective will actually benefit from this gesture, and we hope that other countries can do the same.
And turning now to China travel, where China saw a record 369 million cross-border passenger trips in the first half of this year. That's up nearly 11% year on year. The National Immigration Administration released the data on Thursday. Foreign arrivals rose 20.4% to around 23 million, with visa-free entry fueling that growth. Nearly 78% of all inbound foreign visitors entered China visa-free, marking a 30.6% surge from the previous year. The Republic of Korea, Russia, and Malaysia were the top three source countries. Well, many tourists here in China are going beyond sightseeing to explore the country's living cultural heritage. At a Beijing cultural hub, ancient traditions are colliding with futuristic technology. Our Wu Chung has more.
On the outskirts of Beijing, visitors from over 20 countries recently climbed the rugged Panlongshan Great Wall, soaking in panoramic views of Miyun Reservoir. But for many, the real highlight lies closer to the city center. Tucked inside a historical courtyard in Shenzhen Hutong, the Beijing Intangible Cultural Heritage Experience Center is offering tourists a hands-on encounter with centuries-old crafts with a modern twist. The main draw, a mixed reality headset that transports users onto Beijing's central axis. They can walk from Yongdingmen Gate to the Drum Tower, read virtual blessings, release lanterns, and set off digital fireworks. Tea ceremonies and traditional incense making are also drawing crowds. Meanwhile, at the gift shop, classic Chinese snacks are winning over first-time tasters.
It's for more. This is sweet.
Yeah, we never tried, but it's delicious.
The growing appetite for cultural experiences comes as China opens its doors wider to overseas visitors. Data from the Beijing General Station of Immigration Inspection shows passengers crossing at the capital port had already topped 10 million by mid-June this year. Nearly 1.26 million of those entries were made under visa-free or temporary entry permits. To cope with the rising numbers, border authorities have been adjusting checking points in real time, opening all lines during peak period, and cutting wait times.
For foreigners applying for the 240-hour visa-free transit policy, we've introduced a one-stop procedure that combines temporary entry permit issuance with inspection clearance. This has significantly sped up the process.
With more immersive experiences and smoother entry procedures, China's traditional culture is no longer just something to see, it's becoming a world to step into. Wu Qiong, CGTN, Beijing.
And China's tourism industry is set to ring in a strong summer season. That's according to Chinese travel agency Utour. Outbound travel to destinations such as Australia and New Zealand, North America, and Southeast Asia has seen strong growth of over 100% on a yearly basis. Total bookings for the North American region rose some 135%. That's all thanks to the 2026 FIFA World Cup football tournament jointly hosted by the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. All right, let's get more on China's summer travel season and bring in Du Jiayi, a research fellow at the Shanghai University of International Business and Economics. Jiayi, welcome to the program as always. Let me ask you a big picture question first. How are you seeing China's summer consumption season shaping up so far in terms of spending patterns, but also in terms of sectoral trends?
Yes, China's summer consumption season is showing great vitality. A major growth engine is the tourism sector. Millions of travelers are exploring cool weather mountain regions, coastal escapes, and educational museum tours, supported by billions of yuan in official subsidies and consumer vouchers. At the same time, the integration of youth sports events and the campaigns like Travel with Sports event is turning sports matches into primary vacation destinations. Another trend is a shift from goods to experiences. Consumers are selective, but they happily spend on experiences that feel meaningful. Concerts, immersive spaces, wellness activities, and cultural events all benefit from this shift. Young consumers are the core group for many new formats and creating new consumption sceneries. Together, we can see these trends point to a mature and healthy consumption market.
Yeah, so Jiayi, amid peak summer heat in July and August, which forms of consumption are gaining the most traction, you think?
I would say the most popular forms now are heat avoidance, late-night leisure, and experience-driven wellness. With millions of students on summer break, destinations that are renewed for cooler climate experiences, we can see they have a major surge in family travelers and student study tours. For urban families looking to stay active without sun exposure, indoor ski resorts and ice skating rinks have become weekend retreats. Nighttime economy is another major growth engine, led by outdoor activities like night kayaking and late-night tennis. Museums, historic landmarks, and botanical gardens are also extending their operating hours into the night, featuring creative lighting installations and performances. These diverse spending habits transform the challenges of summer heat into dynamic economic opportunities across both retail and service sectors.
Yeah, well, Jiayi, there are lots of good value for money tourist attractions here in China. Some of them are even free. I was personally at a city-level museum over the past weekend that had great historical artifacts, and that was free. But I want to ask you about a more specific segment, because we also see certain luxury tourist trades here in China selling out fast this summer. despite premium offerings priced at over $10,000 per person. What is driving that appeal, you think, and what does this boom reveal about shifting consumer trends in China's cultural tourism market?
I think this phenomenon is a unique combination of seamless comfort, exclusive entertainment, and access to China's most remote and breathtaking regions. We can see each journey traces the historic road. Local guides share the history at every stop. Passengers wake up to a new landscape each morning. They can deep dive into regional cultures, craft traditions, and natural wonders. This booming demand reveals a profound structural shift within China's cultural tourism market toward high-quality development and experiential luxury. Travelers are increasingly willing to pay a premium for exclusivity, slow-paced immersion, and highly personalized services that can blend local heritage with top-tier comfort. And also the high number of foreign bookings shows that China's premium cultural tourism is now attracting global attention.
Okay, we are going to leave it there. Jia Yi, many thanks for your thoughts as always. That's Du Jia, Research Fellow at the Shanghai University of International Business and Economics. And up next here on Global Business. China issues an action plan to ensure that the country reaches its goal of peaking carbon emissions by the year 2030.
The world economy as we know it is about to change. Global business reports highlight emerging markets, developing countries, and dynamic sectors worldwide. We feature top analysts and newsmakers to provide perspectives on every facet of business. From an on-the-ground perspective, we provide you with balanced and objective assessments. Fast, sharp, and insightful. Global Business. Only on CGTN.
Well, China's State Council has issued a carbon peak action plan for the 15th five-year plan period. The plan sets a 2030 target to cut carbon intensity by 17% from 2025 levels and raise non-fossil fuel share to 25%. Large-scale development of water, wind, solar, nuclear, biomass, and geothermal energy is called for through major bases. Interregional power transmission and direct green power connections are also promoted. The plan also calls for low-carbon transformation of coal-based chemical industries and promotes the application of green fuels, such as sustainable aviation fuel and green hydrogen. It has also set a goal of building 100 national-level zero-carbon parks and 500 zero-carbon factories. Low-carbon transitions in computing infrastructure and leveraging the role of the circular economy in reducing emissions are the other main objectives. All right, for more on China's latest carbon peaking action plan, I want to bring in Lin Boqiang, head of the China Institute for Studies in Energy Policy at Xiamen University. Professor Lin, great to have you on the program as always. So China's 15th five-year plan targets 25% non-fossil energy consumption by the year 2030 and 2,800 gigawatts of wind and solar capacity by 2030 as well. Give us some context behind these numbers. How ambitious are these numbers, and how significant are these milestones for China's carbon peaking goals?
Well, it's a very ambitious, obviously, but it's workable. If you look at the non-fossil fuel and energy, right now it's roughly 21.7%. During the 14 5-year plan, we increased about 5.7%. And if the current goal is to reach the 25%, that means we have to incremental during the 15 5-year plan is 3.3%. And I think if you look at the speed, it's lower than the 14 5-year plan. But because of the base number is much larger, so we expect that the speed will be lower. And for the carbon peak, the oil and coal need to be peak. That's for sure. Oil peak seems to be okay, workable, because the penetration rate of the electric vehicle is reached more than 60% last month. So that's okay. Wind, solar, plus energy storage plus electric vehicle at this moment is workable for the oil peak. But for the coal, it's more challenging because it really need to balance demand and supply in this context.
Right. So just for some other context for our viewers, so China is indeed targeting 25% non-fossil energy consumption by the year 2030, but it's also targeting over 80% non-fossil energy consumption by the year 2060. So we are seeing, of course, an action plan from now to 2030 all the way to carbon neutrality by the year 2060. But let me stick with the 2030 action plan, because that action plan also says China will accelerate its goal of new electricity demand, so incremental electricity demand being met entirely by clean energy. What does this mean for the future build-out and upgrading of China's energy system?
Well, that is really the problem for the 15 years plan. We need to meet all the incremental electricity demand by the non-fossil fuel. In other words, clean energy. That is included hydro, nuclear, wind, and solar. And we all know that the wind, hydro, and nuclear, they are longer construction period. So normally it's much longer than 5 years. So let's assume that there will be some wind, nuclear, and hydro come out, but it will be very small. So the major dynamic was provided by wind and solar. Now let's look at it was estimated that this year's electricity demand will be between 5 to 6%. Okay, if it's 5%, then let's assume that we are going to meet the entire 5% by wind and solar. The wind and solar will require 23% average incremental. And that's roughly the past 5 years average. So it's still workable. But if the electricity demand go to 6%, then wind and solar will have to be increased by 28%. And that seems to me is quite difficult. So in the sense that it depends on the supply, also depends on demand.
Yeah, let me ask about a more long-term question as well, because ideally we have green hydrogen and hydrogen derivatives such as ammonia and methanol to decarbonize hard-to-abate sectors like heavy industry, like marine transport. The action plan talks about what's called an integrated wind, solar, hydrogen, ammonia, methanol hubs. All of these clean energy sources integrated together. Hydrogen, I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, Professor Lin, hydrogen may still be considered a frontier green technology right now, but how do you see the development of the hydrogen industry specifically here in China?
It is. Hydrogen at this point is quite expensive, non-competitive, compared to the natural gas prices 3 to 6 times. So it's not competitive. But hydrogen is very important for China's low carbon transition in the sense that most of the wind and solar endowment is in the West, about 80%. But the electricity demand in the West is about 27%. While in the East, the wind and solar endowment, resource endowment is roughly 12%, but the electricity consumption is more than 60%. So I think that most of the wind and solar will be coming from the energy base, wind and solar base from West, and go all the way to the East. Now there's 2 ways to do this. One is wind, solar plus energy storage plus ultra high voltage. That's what we are doing right now. Actually, we try to move the wind and solar from West to the East. The other way, I think, was the hydrogen coming are presenting with wind, solar, plus energy storage, plus hydrogen production chain. And both lines will depend on which one is more is cheaper. In my guess is that both will have to go because you cannot build so many ultra high voltage. So the hydrogen eventually will become an important transmission mechanism to move the energy, wind, solar, from West to the East.
Yeah, so you are seeing this massive comprehensive build out of clean energy here in China. We've got offshore wind, hydrogen is in the works, geothermal, wind, conventional, solar. For global investors looking at China's massive clean energy build out, where are the opportunities then?
two opportunities. One is to participate, of course. It's a huge, enormous opportunity in these 5 years for the energy transition. Not to mention that the energy incremental still increase at a high speed, 5 to 6%. Also, the AI, we are looking at AI. There's also huge electricity demand from AI. So there's very, very big opportunity here for the foreign company to participate. That's one. Second is that the foreign company can join China together to develop the other markets globally. I think that right now, China has proved that wind, solar, plus storage, plus electric vehicle, this development path is workable. Not only is clean, also is good for the localized energy supply. Looking at what current situation right now. So the wind and solar plus storage plus electric vehicle is not only clean, also good for the national energy security.
Yeah, I think that's an extremely important point, Professor Lin. Co-development between China and other countries when it comes to clean technologies and green development elsewhere in the world. Africa, for example, comes immediately to mind because of how much solar energy the continent is endowed with, wind and hydro as well. So we'll see where that leads to. But we're going to leave it there. Professor Lin, always great to have you on the program. That's Lin Boqiang, head of the China Institute for Studies in Energy Policy at Xiamen University. Well, the 2026 APEC Digital Weeks will take place from July 16th to 29th over in Chengdu, Sichuan province in southwest China. The event is part of a series of preliminary activities leading up to the 2026 APEC meetings hosted by China. A press briefing was held this morning right here in Beijing by the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology. Here's a closer look.
The events include multiple high-level meetings, such as 2026 APEC Digital and AI Ministerial Meeting, high-level dialogue, leveraging digital and AI technologies to empower the APEC community, and the high-level roundtable on data for growth, along with over 30 diverse activities, including APEC-related working group meetings, seminars, exhibitions, and field visits.
本次部长会上，各经济体将围绕着3方面的议题展开深入的讨论。
At this ministerial meeting, economies will discuss 3 priorities. First, leveraging digital and AI technologies to empower sectors like healthcare, education, transport, agriculture, industry, and culture, and ensuring their benefits are widely shared. Second, promoting universal, meaningful digital connectivity through fast, reliable, affordable, and resilient infrastructure to underpin AI-driven development. Third, advancing digital inclusion and skills upgrading to close both the digital and AI gaps, so everyone can share in the knowledge and dividends of the digital age.
人一起来共享人工智能的知识成果和数字红利。
作为2026年 APEC 数字周的重要组成部分。
As an important part of APEC Digital Weeks 2026, events focusing on the theme of Data for Growth will be held from July 25th to 29th. The series is expected to achieve 3 outcomes. First, sharing the practical results of digital China construction and data development and utilization. Second, expanding the depth and breadth of APEC cooperation on data. Third, strengthening the implementation of more cooperation among APEC economies. The events aim to enhance mutual trust in data cooperation among economies.
And Shanghai is gearing up to host the 2026 World Artificial Intelligence Conference and high-level meeting on global AI governance later this month. Ahead of the official opening, organizers offered a special preview into some of the core technologies that will define this year's agenda. The tour aimed to highlight the industry's latest advancements and set the stage for crucial discussions on the future of AI. CGTN's Zhang Siran reports.
Marking its 8th year, the World Artificial Intelligence Conference has solidified its role as a premier global platform for artificial intelligence. This year's event will witness over 140 forums and a massive exhibition showcasing more than 3,000 cutting-edge products. The event aims to be a comprehensive ecosystem, linking global thought leaders with groundbreaking technology to forge industry consensus and offer solutions for global governance. Any advancement in AI begins with raw computing power. Shanghai Eastern Computing Technology is rethinking infrastructure design from the ground up and building a resilient foundation for the digital economy.
东方算新通过软件定义芯片技术和 3D 进存计算技术。
Our approach is built on two disruptive innovations, software-defined chips and 3D near-memory computing technology. By combining these, we create intelligent computing chips that deliver both massive computility and immense bandwidth.
AI large models are now biology engineering itself. Shanghai MatWing's technology has developed a generative AI platform to design entirely new proteins, which are the building blocks of life.
The AI model learns so many different protein properties, therefore it can rapidly deliver protein products according to the target you set up. It can be used in many different areas, including pharmaceutical applications, drugs, and in vitro diagnosis, and food, and agriculture, so on and so forth. And more importantly, since our AI model learns so many proteins survived in the extreme environment, those bacteria, therefore we can deliver protein with extreme properties like extremely temperature sensibility, acid or basic or other stability. Therefore, we can deliver protein products which was unknown, which are unavailable in the market to the public.
This is the first look at this year's event, and Shanghai is more than ready. A central focus is the mission for constructive global governance of AI. This is a determined push to align rapid innovation with ethic values, ensuring AI tools deliver responsible and sustainable benefits worldwide. Zhang Siran, CGTN, Shanghai.
And still to come here on Global Business. We'll take a closer look at the volatility of oil prices as geopolitical tensions flare up once again in the Middle East.
A vast land of 1.4 billion people. The world's second largest economy. Home to stories of the unexpected, the unimaginable, the breathtaking. Stories that touch the soul. Feel the speed, the passion. Enjoy spectacular natural and cultural landscapes. Feel the thrill of cutting-edge innovations. Discovering China. Global Biz. China Travel. We present to China never seen before. 24/7 at your fingertips.
All right, turning now to the energy markets, where oil prices are hovering near $76 a barrel for Brent crude as of Friday, while West Texas Intermediate remains in the $71 to $72 range. The market started the week with declines but saw a sharp rebound later. After a slight dip on July 6th, Brent crude surged from the $68 level to as high as $78 over the next 2 days, driven by escalating Middle East tensions and a single-day gain of over 5%. Oil prices also face a tempered outlook from the U.S. Energy Information Administration, which lowered its forecast in its July short-term energy outlook, projecting that global production and trade flows will return to near pre-conflict levels by the end of this year. Looking ahead, upside for prices appears limited, according to analysts, barring further geopolitical shocks. All right, let's get a closer look now at the equity markets here on the Chinese mainland, over in Hong Kong and Tokyo. Tim Pope is standing by for us in Shanghai. Tim, good to see you. So we saw a lot of activity in Chinese chip and the AI supply chain stocks this week. What were you following?
Hi there, Michael. Yeah, the Shanghai Composite Index was really a mirror of these stocks today. It had been trading quite strongly throughout the morning session, but as we hit the afternoon, things soured and the index fell, giving up its early gains and ending 1% lower. Other indexes sort of had a more exaggerated version of this slump. The Shenzhen Component closed 2.3% lower, and the Star 50 was down 5.5%. Now, it's the top contributors to the decline in Shanghai tell you exactly what happened here. And it was those chip sector stocks, Cambricon, Foxconn, GigaDevice, Hygon. They are four of China's so-called seven sisters, these tech stocks analogous to the Magnificent Seven in the US. These stocks have been fluctuating sharply, really since the start of this month, but this week we saw it again. On the one hand, there's a worry about valuations in the sector and whether they're getting bloated. They're still not approaching US levels of valuation, but still there is some concern about that. And on the other hand, there is this sentiment boost from the IPO pipeline in Shanghai and Shenzhen at the moment. We have, of course, the upcoming IPO of Changxin Technologies, the memory chip maker here in Shanghai, and that one's going to start book building next week in preparation for the IPO and subscriptions, and hopes to raise about 30 billion yuan, 29.5 billion. So that is sort of increasing sentiment as well. Also this week we got some sentiment boost from the PBOC's operations. Firstly, there was an announcement that it would be keeping policy accommodative and increasing support for domestic consumption. June consumption data wasn't all that encouraging, shows that supply is still far outstripping demand. That followed on from a 1 trillion yuan liquidity injection into the markets at the beginning of the week after 3 months of tapering operations. So that gave the market a bit of a lift as well, Michael.
Okay, so Tim, Hong Kong's market, though, ending the week in strong shape, but over in Tokyo, things have been looking a little bit more turbulent.
That's right, yes. Hong Kong's market's definitely in strong shape on Friday. The Hang Seng closed 0.6% higher, but was up around 3.5% for the week as a whole, I think. The market really stayed afloat through a wave of lock-up expiries this week. We had the two big ones, Knowledge Atlas and Minimax. They were initially doing okay. Knowledge Atlas in particular managed to gain in the wake of 6% of its shares, outstanding shares, being released for sale this week. But today it was down 19%. Minimax was down both days as well. This was always going to be a tougher one because 45% of the company's outstanding shares came out of lockup all in one go. Today it fell 9.6%. This week also saw the market debut from Apple contractor Luxshare and its secondary listing in Hong Kong. Today was up 1.5%. That strong IPO pipeline in Hong Kong as well really has set the index on a strong run, despite the volatility that we are seeing on the Asian markets recently. The Chinese mainland is one example of that volatility. Tokyo is another. The Nikkei 225 was up 1.2% today, following a tech share rally overnight in the US. The chip supply chain was particularly strong in Tokyo today. Silicon producer Sumco was up 15.4%. The tech investor SoftBank up 10.7%, and Advantest up more than 2%. But this week has seen the Nikkei sink to a 4-week low before rebounding, and pretty much all of that volatility has been down to chip and AI stocks. The story is the same the region over, Michael.
Indeed. Okay, Tim, many thanks for that update. As always, Tim Pope for us in Shanghai. All right, in other headlines we are tracking at this hour, U.S. President Donald Trump signing a proclamation Thursday sparing commercial aircraft and parts from new tariffs. U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick also recommending against immediate tariff action despite so-called national security concerns over imports. Microsoft's greenhouse gas emissions jumped some 27% in fiscal 2025. That's according to its 2026 environmental data fact sheet. The rise underscores the environmental costs of AI's infrastructure build-out. And Republic of Korea chipmaker SK hynix pricing its American depository receipts at $149 per share Thursday, raising roughly $26.5 billion. That's per a regulatory filing. Strong demand reflects investor confidence in the Republic of Korea's chipmakers' AI supply chain role. Well, this week, the Kospi, which is the Republic of Korea's benchmark stock index, went from being one of the world's top-performing markets to entering a technical bear market earlier this week. It has since recovered some losses yesterday and today. So let's get to our reporter Shane Hum in Seoul for more. Shane, thanks for joining us. So how did the markets perform today, and what triggered the choppy trading sessions we've seen this week?
Hey, Michael. Well, you're right. It has been quite a tumultuous week for the main Kospi index here in the ROK. It did end on a positive note for the week, up 2.5% compared to the previous session's close, mainly due to gains in U.S. tech stocks overnight, as well as easing concerns over oil prices. There was also a lot of anticipation. The aforementioned SK Hynix's U.S. debut of ADRs valued at $26.5 billion, meaning that there's still an appetite for AI at this moment. It would be the largest public offering in the U.S. by a foreign company, if it holds, according to the regulatory filings, and the second largest since, of course, SpaceX's record-breaking IPO offering last month. But as far as the Kospi is concerned, like you said, it's been one of the top performing, if not the top performing major benchmark index in the world since the beginning of last year. It's up nearly 120% year to date from its highest point in late June. But since then, earlier this week, we saw the Kospi plunge 20%, which would put it technically into bear market territory. Now, what this means here is that there's still a lot of volatility, of course, surrounding AI. And the Kospi, if you look at it, it really is putting all its eggs in the basket of two companies, namely Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix. These are two of the world's largest memory chip makers. These are vital components that go into global AI systems everywhere. So it is riding the AI sort of hype, as you could say. But if you another thing that's propelling sort of the gain in the Kospi is this retail investors, individuals leveraging through margin trading or ETFs as well. That's gaining a lot of popularity. As far as concerns here in the market, we've seen a lot of foreign institutional sell-offs and also possible new legislation that would excise taxes for stock gains, which is still in the works. But investors, investment banks, and professionals, experts are still cautiously optimistic for the local benchmark index, despite all its volatility, saying that a lot of the tech gains could trickle into other industries like energy, materials, and industrials by the latter half of this year. So it's still looks like the momentum is still high for the local stock index here. Michael?
Okay, Shane, many thanks for that report. Our Shane Hum for us in Seoul. Well, prices for consumer electronics, from gaming consoles to laptops, are on the rise, driven by a global shortage of memory chips that's been intensified by surging demand for AI technology. Chinese chipmaker CXMT has emerged as a potential new alternative, but with prices expected to remain high for years to come, will that really make a difference? Our reporter Mark New has more.
Consumer electronics prices are on the rise.
Sony had to raise the PS5 by $100, which is huge. Even the Switch 2, Nintendo had to raise it by $50, which is, unheard of. GoPro said they might have to file bankruptcy, partly because of memory costs. Apple, of all folks, which does probably the best job of anybody managing supply chain, they had to start raising prices. The MacBook Neo, the cheapest one, was lauded for being $599. Now it's $699. If Apple can't hold the line, nobody can hold the line.
For the international market, there are three main corporations fabricating consumer product random access memory chips. Two in South Korea, Samsung and SK Hynix, and one in the U.S., Micron Technology. But due to the demand from AI data centers, the three production giants are now devoting a greater portion of their limited resources to produce high bandwidth memory chips instead.
So there's 80% margins on these AI chips versus the 10 to 20% margins on consumer-facing chips. A lot of data centers are repurposing their data centers to be AI-focused. I don't see much relief because the increase in usage just continues to grow.
And so now data centers are soaking up something like 70% of the world's memory, and everyone else is fighting over whatever's left for use in the consumer devices, right? The phones and the laptops that we rely on.
On July 6th, SK Hynix, which has more than 60% of the high bandwidth memory market, launched a U.S. share sale to raise $28 billion. But for standard consumer RAM chips, Chinese company CXMT has emerged as another option. So much so that Apple is now testing them in its devices sold in China.
Right now, everyone's starting to kind of look to China. A company called CXMT has gone from almost nothing to the world's fourth largest DRAM maker in about 2 years. Apple, they're arguably the most powerful buyer in consumer electronics, and they're essentially asking Washington for permission to buy memory from CXMT, a Chinese company. What they're wanting is a guarantee that the U.S. government won't tighten the rules and effectively strand them mid-contract.
Without more chip options, analysts see little hope of prices falling anytime soon. In fact, Micron CEO even admitted that chip supplies will be constrained beyond 2027 due to the fact that it takes years to build fabrication plants.
Everybody talks about food inflation at restaurants, at the grocery stores and whatnot, but boom, when you're hit with this, even buying a new Apple laptop or just a memory card or a flash drive, it affects a whole new broad segment.
Fung says a big test will be the year-end holiday shopping season, when retailers and tech companies will need to get extra creative with pricing strategies to satisfy consumers while making ends meet. Mark New, CGTN, San Francisco.
And that is going to wrap up this edition of Global Business here on CGTN. I'm Michael Wong here in Beijing. Coming up next here on CGTN is The World Today with Hona. We'll see you again next time.